guys, it's your girl from Philly. Welcome to another episode of Handcrafted Wines, where we make great wine from home the fun and easy way. Before we get started, please remember to like, share, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any episodes. In today's episode, we're going to be making a basic mead. And I say basic, but there's absolutely nothing basic about mead. Mead, you know, is a honey wine. It's a wine derived from honey. And it's about the best thing that's ever come out of a beehive. And if you notice, I don't even have a lot of ingredients. It doesn't take a lot to make a great mead. So let's get started. We're going to be using 3.5 pounds of honey. In place of our acid blend, we're going to be using the juice of half of a lemon. Our dynamic duo is still in play here, which is our yeast nutrient and our yeast energizer. And for our yeast, we'll be using Premier Classique Red Star. And if you notice, I don't have tannin here on the table because wine has such character. It doesn't need tannin in order to give it that quality that we get from tannin. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add all 3.5 pounds of honey mead to my fermenter. I know it's 3.5 pounds because I used half of this in order to make our blood orange melomel. So I know exactly what's in here. I added a little bit more after I was done. And if you're not sure, you would just put your carboy or your fermentation vessel onto your kitchen scale, and you would just weigh it as you add it in. I didn't even have to heat it, and this honey is moving pretty rapidly, which is great. We're almost done. All right, that's good. What's left in here, I'll add to some tea. There we go. It's very little. It's just what the residue that's just left on the bottle. Now, so that I can liquefy this honey, I'm going to add some boiled hot water. About the same height as the honey. We're going to cool it off with tap water. And the only utensil I need today is my stir. Now, you know, honey is very viscous, so we want to make sure we liquefy it as much as possible. This is really thick. There is records of mead going back to the Middle Ages. It's a very, very ancient beverage. It may be older than wine. I don't know if it's some shepherd happened to be in the fields and noticed that some honey was kind of smelling a little different and tasted it, and that's how it was discovered. But however it was discovered, it's been like a wonderful beverage to have. And even with a basic mead, you can still add little things to add flavor to it. Like you could add herbs or spices to it, which would make it a metheglin. Verify the pronunciation of that word. Or you could add a little bit of fruit just to give it, you know, the hint of a flavor. It doesn't have to be a full out fruit melomel. You could make a mead and maybe put like a half a pint of blackberries in it to give it some flavor, or a half pint of blueberries and just crush them very gently. So they wouldn't be the predominant flavor in your mead, but they just add to the flavor. Now this lemon juice that I'm adding today, It won't add a lot of flavor. It'll actually just brighten the taste of the honey, but you won't notice that there's lemon in it. Okay, I'm satisfied with it being liquefied. Now I'm going to add the regular water to it. Let's bring that over here. And honey doesn't have any foaming or, there's no pectin or anything because there's no fruit. So we can make this pretty full. If you notice, I didn't add pectin enzyme as part of my ingredients. And there's that bright golden honey color that we love. I'm going to stir it some more because even the diluted is still thickened at the bottom. So I want to make sure this is very diluted before we go any further. Now, the only thing I'm going to add before taking our specific gravity reading is the lemon, just because lemons have, a very trace amount, but they do have sugars. So I want all of the sugars accounted for in this batch. Believe it or not, my spoon still has a lot of resistance in this vessel. Yep, but it's pretty clear. Yeah, it's very liquidy. So I'm going to add our lemon juice. Stir that in nicely. And it looks like the lemon juice kind of brightened the color up just a slight bit. Now we'll take our gravity reading. I did just clean all of this equipment, but you know how I am. I like to make sure that it's completely sanitized. This is probably going to be our shortest video ever. Such a simple thing to make. Now, the only thing that would deter me from making mead all the time is honey is a little expensive. But if you happen to live someplace where they have fresh honey or there's a beekeeper nearby, it's such an easy thing to make. And if you could get it on a discount, that would be fantastic. Okay. Our mead is exactly where we want it. It's a foolproof formula. It doesn't take much to make this right. Okay. So our reading is at 1.100, which according to my hydrometer brings us to, I always scroll past the percentages, 1.100. It looks like 13%, but what I'm going to do is just take a quick look. We're going to hang up that call. I'm going to take a quick look at brewersfriend.com and put that reading in. So 1.100, specific gravity, 14.44%. So we know it's going to be someplace between 13 and 14%. Okay. Now we can add our pectic enzyme and, our yeast nutrient and our yeast energizer. I'm going to stir that in. Oh, and a little bit of time it actually started to clump together a little bit. It actually looks like it's the yeast nutrient that is, the yeast energizer that's clumping a little bit. But I think I found the bubble. Yep, that's exactly what it was. The yeast energizer. And you can very well make your mead without yeast nutrient and yeast energizer. Of course, you know, thousands of years ago when they first started making mead, they didn't have those ingredients. So if you just had water, honey, and yeast, you'd be fine. And in some cases, if it's unpasteurized or unprocessed honey, you would actually be able to ferment it with just the water and the honey, because there would be natural yeast in the honey, since there's natural yeast on flowers. Okay. That's all done. Now I'm going to add our yeast to it, and I'm not going to stir it. I'm just going to actually let it sit on top so I can kind of see how quickly this hydrates for us. Yeah, it's hydrating pretty quickly. So if this ferments to dry, we're going to have a nice percentage. It's not going to be a very high alcohol beverage, but it will be nice. And what's so nice about mead is you could drink it new. So if I wanted to start drinking it in the next 6 weeks, I absolutely could. But it does develop more flavors and it does become more complex if you allow it to age. So I may do half and half. I may let half of this ferment, half of it age to an older age, and then half of it I'll probably drink in the early summer. As it stands, I have a lot of stuff to enjoy this summer. Okay, now we're going to add our lid with our drill hold and grommet. This is so simple. And now we will fill our airlock with star sand. Okay, that's perfect. And I'm able to place the airlock a little bit lower since I don't have any fruit and there won't be any foaming. But look at this. I don't know if you can see that white foam line. The yeast has already began to eat the honey. So it's already started the process of fermentation. And I'm looking at the yeast that I sprinkled on top. It has completely dissolved. There's just, they've started the process. I do remember when I first started making wine at home that it would take 24 to 48 hours for my yeast to start activating. And I believe it's probably because I make so much wine at home, there's probably yeast in the air already, because whenever I start a batch, it starts right away. I mean, with the exception of a few new things that I've tried. But for batches like mead, I can easily see that they start fermenting very quickly. All right, well, that's it for our short episode at Handcrafted Wine. Today we made a basic mead, which is basically just honey, a little lemon juice, and some water. So if you like what you saw here today, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Click the notification bell, tell your friends, get your own equipment, make your own wine. It might be enjoyable to watch someone else make it. It's even more enjoyable to sit back and sip on your own homemade wine. So you have a wonderful day, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.